The world watched in disbelief. September 1st, 1939, Hitler unleashes the Wehrmacht on Poland, a storm of steel and fire. Tanks, planes, infantry. Poland, ill-prepared, fights bravely, but falls. Great Britain and France declare war. World War II begins. The Blitzkrieg, Lightning War, a revolutionary military doctrine, concentrated armored thrusts supported by air power, overwhelmed the enemy with speed and violence, break through their lines, sow chaos and confusion. Poland experienced the full fury of the Blitzkrieg. Panzer divisions smashed through Polish defenses. Stuka dive bombers terrorized soldiers and civilians alike. The Polish army, outmatched and outmaneuvered, fought valiantly but was overwhelmed. France, confident in its Maginot Line, believed itself to be invulnerable. But the Germans outflanked the static defences. Panzer divisions poured through the Ardennes forest. French and British forces were encircled and forced to surrender. The Blitzkrieg proved devastatingly effective. It showcased the power of combined arms warfare. The speed and mobility of tanks, coupled with close air support, overwhelmed traditional defences. The world had never seen anything like it. June 1941, Hitler turns east. Operation Barbarossa. The largest military operation in history begins. Hitler's ambition to conquer the Soviet Union is set into motion, aiming to crush communism and secure vast resources. The invasion of the Soviet Union. Over 3 million Axis troops, including German, Romanian, Finnish and Italian forces, cross the border, initiating a campaign of unprecedented scale and ferocity. Millions of German soldiers surge across the border. They are supported by thousands of tanks, aircraft and artillery pieces, forming a formidable war machine designed to blitz through Soviet defenses. A vast land of steppes, forests and rivers awaits. The Soviet Union, with its immense size and diverse terrain, presents both a challenge and an opportunity for the invading forces. The Eastern Front, the bloodiest theatre of the war, is open. The initial phase sees rapid advances, but the harsh conditions and fierce Soviet resistance soon turn the campaign into a grueling struggle. The Red Army, caught off guard, reels from the initial onslaught. Soviet forces are pushed back, suffering heavy losses, but they begin to regroup and prepare for a counter-offensive. German forces advance rapidly, capturing vast swathes of territory. Cities fall, and the German war machine seems unstoppable, but the vast distances and logistical challenges start to strain their resources. But the Soviets fight back with ferocious determination. Despite initial setbacks, the Red Army launches counterattacks, exploiting the overstretched German supply lines and harsh winter conditions. They will defend their motherland to the death, the Battle of Stalingrad. This pivotal battle becomes a symbol of Soviet resilience and determination, marking a significant turning point in the war. The German advance is halted, and the tide begins to turn in favor of the Soviets. The encirclement and eventual surrender of the German 6th Army at Stalingrad is a devastating blow to Hitler's ambitions. A brutal 6-month struggle for control of the city. The battle is characterized by intense urban combat, with both sides suffering enormous casualties in the fight for every street and building. House-to-house fighting, relentless shelling, unimaginable suffering. Civilians are caught in the crossfire, enduring starvation, bombings, and the horrors of war. The Red Army prevails, but at a terrible cost. The victory at Stalingrad is a turning point, but the city is left in ruins, and the human toll is staggering. The Eastern Front was a war of attrition. Both sides endure brutal conditions, with soldiers facing extreme cold, hunger, and relentless combat. Millions of soldiers and civilians perish. The scale of the conflict is unprecedented, with entire towns and villages wiped out and the landscape scarred by the devastation of war. The vast distances, brutal winters, and fanatical resistance of the Soviet people took a heavy toll on the invaders. The German army, unprepared for the harsh winter, suffers immense losses. The German army would never fully recover. The failure of Operation Barbarossa marks the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany, as the Soviets begin their relentless push westward, reclaiming their territory and advancing towards Berlin. Section 4, the Pacific Theater, from Pearl Harbor to Iwo Jima, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. Japanese aircraft attack Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The U.S. Pacific Fleet lies in ruins. America is at war. The Pacific Theater was a vast expanse of ocean and islands. The Japanese, masters of naval warfare, initially dominated. They swept through Southeast Asia, capturing Hong Kong, Singapore, and the Philippines, island hopping. The American strategy to defeat Japan: capture key islands one by one, pushing closer to the Japanese home islands, each island a fortress, each battle a costly struggle. Okinawa, Iwo Jima, names etched in blood and sacrifice, Japanese soldiers imbued with Bushido code fought with suicidal tenacity. American Marines and soldiers displayed incredible courage and determination in the face of relentless enemy fire. Section 5. Codes and Ciphers, the Secret War. During World War II, while the battles raged on the front lines, another, more covert war was being fought in the shadows. This was a war of intelligence, deception, and cryptography, where the stakes were just as high, if not higher, than those on the battlefield. Behind the front lines, another war raged. This was a war fought not with guns and tanks, but with brains and ingenuity. It was a war where the victors were those who could outthink and outmaneuver their opponents in the realm of information. A war of intelligence and deception. Spies and intelligence officers played a crucial role, gathering information and feeding false data to the enemy. Their work was often dangerous and required nerves of steel, as a single mistake could lead to capture or death. Codebreakers on both sides raced to decipher enemy communications. These unsung heroes worked tirelessly, often in cramped and secretive conditions, to break the codes that could turn the tide of the war. Their work was painstaking and required incredible attention to detail. The outcome of battles, even the war itself, could hinge on their success. The Enigma machine, a complex German cipher device, was at the heart of this secret war. The Germans believed it to be unbreakable, a sentiment that gave them a false sense of security, a complex German cipher device. The Enigma machine used a series of rotating wheels and electrical circuits to scramble messages into seemingly unbreakable codes. Each day, the settings of the machine would change, creating a new code that had to be deciphered. The Allies believed it to be unbreakable. However, they were determined to crack it, knowing that doing so could provide them with invaluable intelligence. The task was daunting, but the stakes were too high to ignore. But at Bletchley Park, England, a team of brilliant mathematicians and cryptologists toiled tirelessly. These men and women, often working in secrecy and under immense pressure, were the unsung heroes of the war. Their work required not only intelligence but also creativity and perseverance. Alan Turing, a pioneer of computer science, played a pivotal role. His innovative thinking and groundbreaking work laid the foundation for modern computing and artificial intelligence. Turing's contributions to the war effort cannot be overstated. His work on the bomb, a code-breaking machine, helped to crack the Enigma code. The Bombay was a marvel of engineering, designed to test different possible settings of the Enigma machine until the correct one was found. This breakthrough was a turning point in the war. The intelligence gleaned from intercepted German messages proved invaluable. It allowed the Allies to anticipate and counter German moves, saving countless lives and hastening the end of the war. But the story of code-breaking doesn't end with the Enigma machine. Native American soldiers from the Navajo Nation played a unique and crucial role in the Pacific theater. Known as the Navajo Code Talkers, these brave men used their native language to create an unbreakable code. They used their complex, unwritten language to transmit vital messages in the Pacific. The Navajo language, with its unique syntax and tonal qualities, was an ideal basis for a code that the Japanese could not decipher. The Japanese were never able to break their code. The Navajo Code. Talkers' contributions were instrumental in several key battles, providing secure communications that the enemy could not intercept or understand. Their legacy is a testament to the power of cultural diversity and ingenuity in times of war. Section 6. The Resistance. Fighting back from the shadows. Across occupied Europe, resistance movements sprang up, ordinary citizens risking their lives to fight back against Nazi oppression. They conducted sabotage operations, gathered intelligence, and helped Allied airmen escape. In France, the resistance grew in strength. They blew up bridges, derailed trains, and harassed German forces. Their actions, though often small in scale, had a significant impact on German morale and logistics. Sophie Scholl and the White Rose, a group of students in Munich who distributed anti-Nazi leaflets. They were betrayed, arrested, and executed. Their courage and sacrifice inspired others to resist. The resistance fighters were ordinary people who performed extraordinary acts of bravery. They endured unimaginable risks and hardships. Their contributions to the Allied victory were essential. Section 7. Turning the Tide, D-Day and the Liberation of Europe. This pivotal moment in history marked the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany's occupation of Europe. The meticulous planning and coordination that went into this operation were unprecedented, involving countless hours of strategizing and preparation by the Allied forces. June 6, 1944. D-Day. the day that would change the course of World War II. As dawn broke, thousands of soldiers prepared to embark on a mission that would test their courage and resolve, the largest amphibious invasion in history. Over 156,000 Allied troops crossed the English Channel, supported by a massive naval and air bombardment. The sheer scale of the operation was staggering, with over 5,000 ships and 11,000 aircraft involved. American, British and Canadian troops stormed the beaches of Normandy, France. Facing fierce resistance, they braved the treacherous waters and heavily fortified German defenses. The bravery and determination of these soldiers were nothing short of extraordinary. Operation Overlord, the liberation of Western Europe, has begun. This massive military campaign aimed to establish a foothold in Nazi-occupied France and pave the way for the liberation of the continent. The success of this operation was crucial for the Allied forces. Under a hail of gunfire, Allied soldiers fought their way ashore. The beaches of Normandy became a battleground, with soldiers facing relentless enemy fire. Despite the overwhelming odds, they pressed forward, driven by the hope of freeing Europe from tyranny. Omaha Beach, a scene of carnage and heroism. The fighting here was particularly brutal, with many soldiers losing their lives. Yet, amidst the chaos, acts of incredible bravery and sacrifice shone through as soldiers helped each other and pushed forward against the enemy. Slowly, painstakingly, the Allies established a foothold. Inch by inch, they secured the beaches and began to move inland. The initial success on D-Day was just the beginning of a long and arduous campaign to liberate Europe. The liberation of France had begun. As Allied troops advanced through the French countryside, they were met with joy and relief by the local population. The sight of Allied soldiers brought hope to those who had endured years of occupation. Paris is liberated in August 1944. The French capital, a symbol of freedom and culture, was finally free from Nazi control. The liberation of Paris was a significant milestone in the Allied campaign. The streets erupt in celebration. Parisians took to the streets, cheering and waving flags as they welcomed their liberators. The joy and relief were palpable as the city celebrated its newfound freedom. The long nightmare of Nazi occupation is over. The removal of Nazi flags and symbols marked the end of a dark chapter in history. The people of Paris, and indeed all of France, could finally look forward to a future free from oppression. The Allied armies pushed eastward, driving the Germans back towards their own borders. The momentum of the Allied advance was unstoppable as they liberated town after town, village after village, bringing freedom to the people of Europe. The Battle of the Bulge, Hitler's last gamble. In a desperate attempt to turn the tide, the Germans launched a surprise counter-offensive in the Ardennes forest. The battle was fierce and brutal, fought in the harsh winter conditions. A desperate counter-offensive in the Ardennes forest. The German forces threw everything they had into this last-ditch effort, hoping to break through the Allied lines and turn the tide of the war in their favor. American troops, caught off guard, fought tenaciously. Despite being taken by surprise, the American soldiers held their ground, displaying remarkable resilience and determination in the face of overwhelming odds. The German advance was halted, their forces shattered. The Allies managed to repel the German offensive, inflicting heavy losses on the enemy. This marked the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany. The end was in sight. With the German forces in retreat and the Allies advancing towards Germany, the final victory was within reach. The liberation of Europe was almost complete, and the world could begin to hope for peace once more.